Mr. President, wake up.
Mr. Joe.
Just remember, no big secret. Poor kids are just as bright and just as talented as white kids.
Come on, man.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my new video. My name's AJ. Hope you enjoyed those funny clips in the beginning of the video. But let's get down to business. I'm going to be talking about how Liz Truss is destroying the UK economy. And I want to show you how the pound is doing. And this is the euro versus the dollar. And you can see the euro has been going down against the dollar. And it's been going down severely this year. And everybody knows it's with parity now. €1 equals $1. Last few weeks it did go down below the dollar, but it seems to have clawed its way back up to $1 again. But I want to show you there's one currency which is doing even worse than the dollar, and that's the pound, British pound. And you can see how badly the British pound has been falling. And this is for the month, and if you look for the year, you can see it's fallen to all new depths below, and it's never been this low if you look at the whole year. And it's pretty bad, guys. It's really bad. And this could mean that the Feds increase the interest rates even higher, and like British people aren't struggling enough with their interest rates going up even higher, so which means people will have to pay higher for their mortgages, they'll have to pay higher for their loans, and even businesses will have to pay higher for business loans and things like that. So it's not looking good. So you might say, hang on a second, the pound becoming weaker, this means the exports are cheaper, right? So Britain becomes much more attractive for exports. Unfortunately, that is not the case. Britain imports more than it exports. And most of its export companies have pretty much been destroyed after Brexit. And these figures show how. So this report shows that 1/3 of UK exporters to the EU have stopped exporting within the first year alone after Brexit. But it gets worse. There's this coming out from the government, and it shows how 99.3% of all UK businesses do not export goods to the UK, and 97.2% of all UK employers do not export goods to the UK. And these are huge numbers, which means that the small percentage of companies which do export to Europe now have basically cut down by 1/3. So only 2/3 of those companies now export to Europe. And even those companies are struggling, because what you have is you have a lot of red tape now with UK. And so a lot of these companies are struggling. And because they're struggling, that means they have to reduce costs, which means reducing workers. And some of them even pack up and leave for Europe. And there's a huge number of companies which have actually packed up UK and just moved to Europe instead. And instead of paying UK taxes, they're now paying European taxes. So it's a huge loss for UK. I know what you might say, doing Brexit and leaving the EU is probably the best thing that's happened to UK. Well, look, I'm not a fan of the EU, I'm not a fan of Ursula, but I am a fan of trade. And EU is very good for trading purposes. Politically, not so good, but for trade and other things, it's actually very good. Mainly because EU is UK's nearest neighbour. So in terms of transporting goods, it's much cheaper, it's much quicker. Rather than transporting goods to and from Japan or Australia or United States. I mean, look at the gas and oil prices right now. Just to transport goods to and from United States is going to cost a bomb. It's just not going to be worth it. It's just not going to be worth it to sell. It's not going to be worth it to buy. So why not sell to your nearest neighbours? Why have all this red tape? It just makes no sense. This means that due to the weak pound, businesses cannot take advantage of the weak pound to export their goods across the world and be very competitive in terms of price, because they can't be competitive. They can't export further out because the costs of transport too expensive, and they can't export to the EU because of all the red tape, etc. So it's absolutely ridiculous. There's no point having a weak pound when you can't take advantage of it. So this means that there's less tax money going into the government because companies are paying less tax because there's less exports. Also, companies are laying off people because they're having to reduce their exports. And also, companies are moving away from UK going into Europe or other countries, and this means less tax for the government as well. Liz Truss is also going to cancel the bankers' bonus cap, which means at the moment the bankers have a cap which is double or triple their salary, which cannot go more than that. And this keeps control of the bankers' finances and means that these bankers don't take risks. Now that this cap is going to be removed, these bankers are going to take huge risks with not only the banks but also with the UK economy. This is one of the reasons we had a stock market crash in 2008, while Lehman Brothers crashed as well, because of these ridiculous bankers taking all the risks. And guess what? When these banks take these big risks and eventually collapse, we're the ones have to bail them out, the taxpayers. There's a new rule out called the bail-in, which means if the bank is ready to collapse, they can take away your money, my money from the bank savings, and this is what you call a bail-in. And so they take the risks, they make the money, and we end up bailing them out if there's any problems. It sounds like a fair deal, doesn't it? It's absolutely disgusting during this cost of living crisis that these bankers are going to be making millions while everyone else is struggling. It's just not fair at all, guys, not fair. However, the massive one is this 200 billion she's going to borrow for the cost of living crisis. And just to let you know that the COVID stuff that we had cost us between 400 and 500 billion, could be even 600 billion. So this is almost half of that, but it could be even more. So it's a really easy thing to do if you're a leader. You come as a British Prime Minister, and the first thing you do is borrow 200 billion. I mean, anyone can borrow money, right? It's how you're going to pay it back. That's the problem. I mean, it seems like she's just kicking the can further down the road. She's not thinking about the future. Maybe she knows she's not going to be in power within the next 6 months or a year. So she's just doing it just to please people in the short term. But what about the long term? There's a huge issue here. They're saying that she's going to have government bonds. Well, let me tell you something about government bonds. With the weak pound right now, these bonds are useless. I mean, Britain is going through a recession now. Who's going to buy government bonds? Who? America's not going to buy it. Europe is not going to buy it. And the only other country that could possibly buy it is China. And guess what? Britain has been absolutely insulting China recently. They have been insulting them. They've been banning them from seeing the Queen. Then they unban them. Then they ban them again. Make up your mind, guys. What's the Chinese got to do with the Queen's death? Seriously, there's only 2 countries that were banned. It was Russia and Belarus. China wasn't banned, but the UK Parliament decided to ban them themselves. It's just one embarrassment after another. China could have easily bought these government bonds and helped out Britain. But no, they had to make China an enemy. Anyway, she can also try to increase taxes, but she's not going to do that. She's actually reducing taxes. And you can see from this article here, she's reducing something called national insurance. And this is going to save an ordinary person or a poor person 63p a month. What is 63p a month going to do to a poor person? I mean, look at the inflation, how far that's going up. Look at the gas prices, electricity prices. 63p a month is not going to pay for anything. You can't even get like sweets for that. With the current inflation costs, you can't get anything for that. It's useless. So she's reducing these taxes, which is going to do nothing. She's going to produce government bonds, which is nobody's going to buy. So what other options does she have? The only other option is to do money printing. And everybody knows when you do start money printing, then your inflation goes up even higher. Britain has the highest inflation rate in Europe at the moment. Higher than any other European country. And this is because of reckless money printing during the pandemic, and they're going to carry on doing it throughout this bill by the looks of it. So let me ask you a question. If you're going to print so much money, what is the point of paying taxes? What is the point of asking people to pay for taxes? What is the point of paying anything when you can print as much money as you want? This is what they're doing. They're taking money away from people, plus they're printing money like there's no tomorrow. And then they start complaining about inflation. So this cost of living bill that she's doing, it's not benefiting UK. It's not benefiting the UK people, by the way. This is kicking the can further up the road. Somebody later on will have to pay for it, either with higher taxes or lower cost of public services, like they will take more money off the NHS, more money off, education, things like that. But one particular group of people will be very happy, and this is the big oil companies. And you can see here that the big oil companies' profits have soared to 174 billion this year. So this bill guarantees these companies will keep their profit. As you know, Ursula recently said in the EU conference that she's going to have a windfall tax against European gas and oil companies so they don't make as much profit. However, the British ones are not part of that deal, so these British companies must be laughing. They must be laughing they're part of Britain, because British oil and gas companies don't have to pay any windfall tax. So not only do they make a profit, they guarantee that profit as well with that money the British government is borrowing just to keep money in their pockets. I mean, the wise thing to do is to nationalize these companies. Imagine 174 billion going into the British economy, and how that would have helped so many people in Britain. But no, Liz Truss is all about making profits for these big companies. She's very much in the pockets of the WEF. So I'm not surprised that she's done this. And I'm sure a lot of these big oil company execs will be ringing her up or patting her on the back and saying, "Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. We really appreciate it." So in summary, all Liz Truss is doing is making the rich richer. She's making more money for these oil and gas companies. She's going to be making these more money for the bankers. If things go badly, guess what? The British public will have to bail out these banks. We'll have to bail out these oil and gas companies if things go pear-shaped as well. And she doesn't care about the short term. She doesn't care about how much money she's borrowing. She knows she's not going to be in power within 6 months or a year. So she's doing everything she can to kick the can further up the road. And this will be somebody else's problem if they come into power after Liz Truss. So she's not really thinking long term. She's only thinking short term. And this is why she's a real danger to the UK economy. And this is why she's going to make us bankrupt. Also, that's enough for me from today. I thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, comment. Do what you can to help the algorithm. Don't forget to watch the video from start to end as well. And also, those of you who can help support the channel, I really appreciate it. I have been losing support lately, so if you can join my locals, that'll be really good. If you do not want to join my locals, you want to buy me a coffee instead, you can do that also. Anyway, take care for now, and I'll see you guys soon.